This is John's House, a daily place for real conversation about Frederick. From the decisions that affect your neighborhood to the events, nonprofits, restaurants, and local leaders that make this community move. Local, regional, national, and always connected to home. Come on in. John's House starts now.
Thursday already. So happy it's Thursday. That means the weekend is almost here. I know there's a lot going on around the region. However, news-wise, not a ton of stuff in Frederick today. So we're going to get you caught up on some things going on around the region and let you know some things you can get involved with to help out your neighborhood as well. Don't forget, we are broadcasting live from Studio 401. If you would like to be part of the Everything Frederick Live Network, it's pretty easy. So many ways that you can be involved. You could become one of our partners, one of our sponsors, and get the word out to more people than any other media. Everybody says that, but here we have the numbers to prove it. 1.8 million watches. That's what I said. 1.8 million watches over the last 60 days across our podcast. We have 15 podcasts, and we do a lot of individual things from events and from new grand openings and ball games. I mean, there's so much going on around the region. For example, just the other day on Saturday, we went out for the grand opening for the pickle park. The place was packed, and they've been getting the word out. That's for sure. Just another example of what it's like working with the crew here at the Everything Frederick Live Network. Good morning, Frederick, bright and early in the morning. Those guys have been doing it for almost 2 years now and have grown that to huge amounts of watchers and listeners. John's House and Frederick Sports tomorrow. It's unbelievable, but it'll be the 50th edition for each show tomorrow. It is a little bit crazy. People all the time are like, wait a minute, you're doing 2 podcasts? Yeah, because, you know, A, we kind of had the need around the network, and B, it's fun. I can knock one out early in the morning. I can go out and visit potential new sponsors throughout the middle of the day, and then I can come back and finish my day with Frederick Sports. So that makes it a lot of fun for me, but it also adds to what we do here with 3 live podcasts every Monday through Friday between Good Morning Frederick and the 2 shows that I do. Plus, again, all the other podcasts, whether they're bi-weekly, weekly, monthly, there's so much to follow. So I highly recommend telling your friends about the Everything Frederick Live Network. They can look on Facebook. That's where we get a lot of views, a ton of views live on Facebook and for each of the other podcasts, even when they're recorded. And then, of course, you can go online, YouTube, to the Everything Frederick Live Network, and you can find out about all the different podcasts that they have on there. Remember, like and subscribe below. And if you want to reach me for any of the things we just talked about, it's very easy. You want to be part of the show? We'd love to have you. You want to talk about your new business or your new restaurant or a nonprofit event that's coming up? Again, that's what we're here for, to talk about things going on right here in Frederick. And you can reach me directly at rockthewave13@gmail.com. That's rockthewave13. Oh, there it is on the screen right there. rockthewave13@gmail.com. All right, let's kind of go over some things, some of which we have talked about this week and some of which are brand new. And a little bit later on the show, I haven't done it in a while because we've had a ton of content. I break out the album of the day, the album as in vinyl record album. I know I'm old. I can't help myself, but it's fun. So we're going to do that in the second half of the show today. We'll let you know what the surprise album is in just a bit. It's always a classic. So that's what we promise you, a classic album. That doesn't necessarily mean classic rock, but a classic album coming up, because I do miss doing the music side of being on the air. All right, Going on around here, first off, a big announcement from the Frederick County Division of Aging and Independence. They will have a free health screening or free health screenings, different types of health screenings, and show you community resources at their free health fair on Monday, August 17th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at the New Market Garage. I'm sorry, that's Grange. That's not a garage. 362 at 14 South Alley. You can go check that out. Services will include blood pressure and cognitive health screening. Speaking of cognitive health screening, I just saw a post on Politico with Nancy Pelosi. Now, again, why so much later? But she's saying all the people that knew about the cognitive health of the former president should be questioned. Why now? As she's out of office, she just feels she knew what was up. Again, just something to think about as you're going through your day. But anyways, you can get your cognitive health screen done. And you're not president. So you can deal with whatever they let you know, and then you can work on fixing it, right? That's how it should work. Also, A1C testing for the first 40 participants, plus vision and hearing screenings at the Lions Club mobile unit. There are a number of mobile units that are going to be at this health screening as well. Residents can get information on applying for programs, including Meals on Wheels, financial assistance through Medicare, along with info on energy assistance, home repairs, and services for veterans and families and people with disabilities. So all these things you can get hooked up with at the Frederick County Division of Aging Independence Free Health Screening coming your way next Monday. Also, a free lunch and a bag of groceries will be available for the first 25 participants. The county's Move Mobile, a former ambulance equipped with technology for screenings and applications, will also be at the event. So again, if you're getting up there in years and maybe you can't see the doctor as often as you'd like, but you need a little help, this is a great place to go. Again, you can check that out on August 17th. That's next Monday, the free health fair. There it is up on the screen to give you some more details on that as well. And speaking of health, there is a blood shortage. There usually is toward the end of summer. People don't get out to the American Red Cross or wherever they donate blood as often as they would at any other time during the year. Usually the worst times are in the holidays, between Thanksgiving and Christmas for donations, and late in the summer are usually the toughest times. And they're usually little droughts, if you will, of people giving blood. So the Frederick Health Blood Center at Frederick Health Way, suite number 100, is taking donations Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. till 3 p.m. They are closed on Saturday and Sunday. So, you can either get out early before you go to work, and I think they'll give you a cookie to make you feel better, too. That's usually how it works. You want information, call them at 240-566-3700. Also, the American Red Cross at 141 Thomas Johnson Drive, suite number 120, is another place where you can give blood. And their number, if you'd like to make an appointment in advance, is 1-800-RED-CROSS, 1-800-RED Cross. The donations to these two locations stay inside the Frederick Health system. So they're going to help people right in the Frederick area. Unless there is an emergency at a close by county, they're going to stay right here in our county. Now, scheduling an appointment is strongly recommended, as sometimes they will accept walk-ins depending on the daily availability. But again, they suggest, if possible, sometimes you're like, you know what, it would be nice if I gave blood today. You're driving by the Red Cross, you pulled your car in. I don't know if it really works like that for people, but I've driven by and thinking, I should stop. But, sometimes the rest of the schedule takes over. So again, they suggest that you schedule in advance. Again, for the Frederick Health Blood Donor Center, it's 240-566-3700. And the American Red Cross at 141 Thomas Johnson Drive is 1-800-RED Cross. And here's something else. There seems to always be something tied to something we talked about earlier. They do require, you don't have to have one to vote, but to give blood, you do need to bring a government-issued photo ID when you check in. Again, another thought. You got to have an ID to give blood, but not some other important things in life. All right. What else do we have going on? Some fun stuff going on we're going to talk about in a little bit. I'll just tell you about it right now, okay? We'll kind of break up the serious stuff with the fun stuff. Next Tuesday, August 18th, that is Frederick Feud. If you didn't see the first edition of Frederick Feud, this is kind of cool because it is set up just like the TV show. AJ gets up on the stage, and the stage, like I said, it looks like the real deal for Family Feud on television that you see. And it is a lot of fun. The audience will get to participate early with some trivia and things like that, some practice rounds, if you will. And then the 4 nonprofits will battle to see who will face Soar in the championship to get $1,000 for their nonprofit. Now, in this round, it'll be a little bit less, and then they advance to the championship. But again, Frederick Feud for charity at Rockwell Brewery. And this edition of Frederick Feud will be next Tuesday. That is August 18th. And again, it's Rockwell Brewery on Broadband Drive. It's the newer version of Rockwell Brewery. Tickets are $25 in advance. And you're helping local charities just by being there and watching and cheering on your favorite nonprofit. Plus, there'll be some raffles and some things going on, different things, trivia, and just a lot of fun. And at the end, the audience members, if you're not on one of the teams, will get to go up and play the game as well to make it even more fun, to raise even more money for one of the nonprofits that did not win the round. All right. So again, a lot of fun. And then there will be a third round coming up a little bit later on in the year. And next Wednesday, less than a week away. And by the way, I have an update on tickets. Next Wednesday, the 35th anniversary of Point Break. We're working with our friends at Warehouse Cinemas. There are only 3 single tickets left in the regular part of the audience. So only 3 single tickets left, and they are separate from each other. So, you can still go, want to go by yourself. You don't have to worry. We need to get rid of those 3 tickets, and they're only $8 a piece. And all the food on Wednesdays for at least 2 more weeks at Warehouse Cinemas, it's $8, even for the big Krabby pizzas. And Krabby fries, and what else did we have? Korean chicken. That's also pretty tasty. Just $8. Normally it's $15 or $16 when you go to the movies, but Wednesday, for at least the next 2 Wednesdays, everything is only $8, including your movie ticket. And we're going to have some ways that you can get hooked up with some movie tickets as well. And the grand prize will include a $25 gift card and other goodies that we're giving away. And there's so many, but wait, there's more. But there is. If you come dressed in beach attire, any kind of beach attire that you're comfortable with, okay, whatever you want to wear some baggy shorts and a Charlie Sheen golf shirt. No, I mean Charlie Sheen bowling shirt. That kind of is beachy. I think you're okay there. I think you'll get yourself a Maryland Lottery scratch off. Everybody who comes in beach attire is getting hooked up with Maryland Lottery scratch off. Plus, everyone gets laid that night. You know what I mean. You get one of those Hawaiian lays around your neck. That's what I mean. And if you want to do that other stuff later, that's up to you. But everybody's going to get a Hawaiian lei when they walk in. And it's just going to be a fun night. We'll do some trivia. We'll watch the movie. And if you haven't seen the original version, if you saw the remake of Point Break that came out a few years ago, the remake is horrible, by the way. Horrible compared to the original. And you get Keanu Reeves before The Matrix. You get Keanu Reeves before John Wick. But you start to see his, ability. He does all his own stunts. That's one of the things about Keanu Reeves. So you start to see him doing that. He actually learned how to surf. So it's a fun movie to watch, and we're going to have a good time. If you've only seen it on television, you'll get a few surprises. If you have little kids, I highly recommend it. It is rated R, so probably not a good idea. There is, teenagers, I think it's okay. There's some nudity. There is some violence, gun violence, if that bothers you when you go to see a movie. But it's a great action flick, so you can check that out. Again, next Wednesday, the 35th anniversary of Point Break, and you can party with us inside Warehouse Cinemas. All right, so there's a couple of other cool things that we're doing around the region. Let me see. Oh, yeah, 6 religious leaders in Frederick are now working to eliminate $15 million in medical debt in Frederick County by raising just $103,000. Now you're thinking, how can they do that? They get $103,000 and they get rid of $15 million in medical debt. They're asking people to donate to a local campaign called Undo Medical Debt, a national nonprofit that buys medical debt at a drastic discount so it can be completely eliminated. This will clear that collective $15 million for 14,000 plus different people in Frederick County, according to the group's webpage for the campaign. And that's at tinyurl.com/undo medical debt. People can also donate at that webpage. The local churches involved include the Grace United Church of Christ, the All Saints Episcopal Church, the Calvary United Methodist, the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Frederick, and the Evangelical Reformed Unity Church of Christ. Like I said yesterday, I don't think there's any called Joe's Catholic Church anymore. I don't think it works like that. All of them have really long names now. And that's how they get the message across, I guess. The goal is to have that money raised by October 31st. And as of when we last checked, people have donated just over $3,000 to the cause. The people that qualify for this, Undo Medical Debt only buys the debts of people who owe 5% or more of their total annual income or are below 400% of the federal poverty line. But again, right now, there are 14,788 people who are going to be helped out by just raising this $103,000. So again, you can check out the details and figure out how you can make that happen. There's some free exhibits at the Delaplane Arts Center. The Over 70 show, not that 70 show. It's not in Wisconsin. This is the Over 70 show 2026. Ken Bachman's Perspectives and Sarah Karen's Inner Space. All are free. Okay, there's some cool things there. And let me see, there's an African cooking class. You can learn vegan jollof rice and curry chicken stew. I'm a big curry chicken guy. I love some curry chicken. All right. Frederick Community College for only $39. Go to the community college website to get all of those details. I do have so many notes here today of things going on. And let's see here. Let me give you some jobs, too. If you missed the job listing that we had a couple of days ago, Frederick County Workforce Jobs. We have a bunch of them listed. FrederickWorks.com is the website where you can get details. There's an administrative coordinator. It's office work and travel planning for $49,000 to $74,000 a year. Biomedical engineer, standardized organoid modeling. Look, I don't make them up. I just read them. In this case, $77,000 to $110K. There's a research associate position, design and building reagents for gene editing experience. What else could that be like? I wonder. $70,000 to $100K is the payout on that if you have those kind of skill sets. Material handler, warehouse clerk, freezer and cold room work. That is all covered for $13 to $20 an hour. Strategic national stockpile handler. That seems like a heavy duty job. Maryland Responds Medical Reserve is the name of the company that you'd be working for. $55,000 to $72K. A bilingual emotional support specialist, if you're looking for a job like that, $25 an hour. Caregivers and home aid at $18 an hour. There are medical assistant positions, $20 to $27 an hour. Those are just some of the jobs you can find at FrederickWorks.com. Always a great site to go to if you're looking for a local job. And there are a couple of ways that you can find some jobs face-to-face. Today, as a matter of fact, Sub-Zero Engineering has site managers and welders positions available. You need to call basically right now to set up an interview before the end of the day at 301-600-2762 if you're interested in working for Sub-Zero Engineering. Or you can email lewis@frederickcountymd.gov. And if you want information on Sub-Zero Engineering, you can go to subzeroeng.com. Also, next Tuesday, opportunities at the Frederick County American Job Center, 200 Monroe Avenue here in Frederick for registered nurses, program specialists, direct support professionals. You need to RSVP by calling Max at 301-600-2523. That's with United Community Connections. And if you want details on that company, unified.org, UNIFIED.org. And that is going to be next Tuesday if you want to go directly from 10 until 1. So there you have it. There's a job update around the region as well. I'm going to come back in just a couple minutes with our album of the day. Who's it going to be? It will be a classic, and that's coming up in just a couple minutes. My name is John Hunt, and this is John's House.
Hot Fired Arts is Frederick's handmade, locally owned art studio where creativity meets community. Since 2016, they've offered hands-on art experiences for all ages, from pottery and fused glass to wet clay and canvas painting. Whether you're looking for a fun family outing, a date night, or a creative outlet, they make art accessible and enjoyable for all skill levels. Stop by and see them today in the Fairview Shopping Center on 7th Street, Frederick, or visit them online at hotfiredarts.com.
Frederick, if you're craving real Chicago-style flavor, Rosati's is bringing it. From their cheesy, loaded deep dish pizza to crispy tavern-style thin crust, every bite is packed with that classic Rosati's taste. And don't sleep on the steak and cheese sub. Hot, hearty, and seriously satisfying. Rosati's has been serving family recipes since 1964, and now you can get it right here in Frederick. Stop by 911 West 7th Street or order online at rosatispizza.com. Rosati's, keeping it real since 1964.
Sponsored by Taco Bar in Frederick and Gaithersburg and Taquito in Hagerstown. Taco Bar is in West Point Plaza off Route 40 in Frederick and at 3 Russell Avenue in Gaithersburg. And Taquito is at 812 Frederick Street in Hagerstown. Taquito offers the same great quality food with a drive-through experience. TacoBar1.com or Taquito by TacoBar.com.
All right, we are back. And before we go to our album of the day, I do want to thank some great sponsors who have joined us recently. Jerry Donald for Delegate. Jerry Donald running for the 4th District Delegate for the state of Maryland. And he will be on the show again here pretty soon. Also, our friends, which you just saw their ad, Rosati's Pizza. And you can't forget about Hot Fired Arts, both of them on 7th Street. Right here in Frederick. And, all of them great local businesses, great places to stop by and say hi. And when you go to Rosati's, tell them that you want to get hooked up with the 20% off for farm fresh pizzas. All right. They will take really good care of you there as well. All right. We're going to go to our classic album of the day. And it doesn't always mean classic rock. In this case, it probably would fit under that category, I would think. Paul McCartney's McCartney album. And some people call that the Cherries album because on the front of the album, there you go. You can see the pictures of the cherries and the bowl of, I don't know what that would be. Cherry jelly, maybe? I don't know what's in the bowl, but it's red. I don't think it's blood. That was the time when they were all having rumors that Paul McCartney was dead and all this other. He was not, of course. That was, that was kind of crazy at that time with the Beatles. But the debut solo LP from the Beatles, Paul McCartney, again, also known as the Cherries album, became because of the cover, released April 17th, 1970. Now, after the last few Beatles albums were heavily produced, Paul went for a lo-fi approach, recording a lot of it in Scotland on his farm. He had a farm and a ranch. As you see in a lot of the pictures, you'll see those Paul is silly. And his wife at the time, she passed away, and she'd probably still be his wife had she not passed away. Paul was very much in love with Linda. And little sidebar about Linda, she was Linda Eastman. And if you're thinking, how do I know that name Eastman? That was from her dad formed Eastman Kodak. And she was very, very well off. She didn't need to marry a Beatle, but, those two hit it off very well. and she got Paul McCartney into photography. But Linda Eastman, from the Eastman Kodak Company, she had her own wealth from her father, and her brothers were both lawyers who helped Paul McCartney after the breakup of the Beatles. So, yeah, he married a lady who was, you hear about gold diggers and crazy stuff like that when it comes to musicians and sports superstars and things like, but in this case, Linda may have had more money than Paul did at the very beginning. Now, of course, as time went on, Paul doing the solo thing, one of the two makers of Apple Records, which lasted a little while. And by the way, to those of you who think Apple Records, I've heard this, and it's not true. Apple Records is not a pre-shoot, if you will. It's not the beginning of Apple computers. Completely separate from each other. As a matter of fact, Apple, Paul and John and the lawyers that worked with them tried to sue Apple computers at one time because initially they tried to use that original green apple as their logo. And so there at one time was a lawsuit between the Beatles, even though they had broken up, and Apple computers many, many years later. Again, so many side notes that go along with John, Paul, George, and Ringo for sure. But yeah, Paul went for the lo-fi approach. And apart from a few vocals on this album from his wife, Linda, he performed the entire album alone by overdubbing on a simple 4-track machine. A lot of it, again, done in his basement. The critics didn't like it initially as they blamed Paul for breaking up the Beatles. Now, what people didn't know at the time, when Paul released an album that got released before Let It Be, they all thought, oh, it's Paul's fault. He broke up the Beatles, but they don't know what happened in private. That didn't come out until a little bit later, that it was actually John and Yoko that broke up the Beatles because John went to the Beatles and he said, I want a divorce, is basically what he said in a band meeting. He said, I want a divorce from the band. He wanted to break up the Beatles. And of course, Yoko was the one kind of pushing him to do the bed-ins for peace and, all the fun, interesting, weird, crazy stuff that Yoko still does. I mean, if you ever heard Yoko sing, I don't recommend it. I really don't. But anyways, that's another offshoot from the Beatles. Paul recorded this album while in a huge, deep depression, while the public thought that the Beatles were still together. It was before nobody knew the album was coming. And so the general public thought the Beatles were still going to make more albums. And they had been working on Let It Be just before that. So this album was released. He ended up fighting with the other people involved in Apple Records, saying, look, I got my album done. I want to release it. And they're like, no, you got to wait till Let It Be comes out. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. And so, again, for those reasons, the public thought it was him who broke up the Beatles. Now, the album went on to be number 1 on the Billboard chart for 3 weeks before then being knocked to number 2 by Let It Be. The biggest hit on the album was Maybe I'm Amazed, which is the only thing the critics gave any love for. That was kind of a love ballad. If you've never heard it, you can always go back and check that out. Because unfortunately, we can't play music on these podcasts. But that's okay. That's one of the things that makes us better at what we do, right? We have to focus on what we're talking about versus just on the music. But again, I love those days. All right. So craziness with the Beatles at the time. Paul releases this album. The critics don't like it. Matter of fact, it didn't even make number 1 in England, only in the United States on the Billboard charts. After the LP was released, Paul had a nervous breakdown, and he ended up retreating to his farm in Campbelltown, Scotland, for just over 3 months. No one heard from him. None of the other Beatles heard from him. His producers, only family, and they all were very tight-lipped about what was going on after John's divorce from the band in September 1969, thus starting all these Paul is dead rumors. I don't know. Back in the day, they used to have shows. A matter of fact, I tried to produce one myself, but there was too much involved. And we would play at one of the radio stations I worked at. We would actually play like a 1 hour long show over a period of 6 or 8 weeks that said, here's the rumors. Here's the story. Is Paul really dead? And, they did things like you could backward mask albums and, play it backwards and it would say, I buried Paul, or whatever. I mean, it was crazy. You could look that up. It's a wild story, kind of interesting from back in the day. And I think there were even a documentary or two made about, whether it was true or not. Some people said, oh, Paul is taller on this album cover than he was on that album cover. And, Paul's face is a little bit different, or this version of Paul's face had plastic surgery, or, Linda wasn't seen in public anymore after a certain date with Paul because it wasn't really Paul. I mean, there were so many rumors. And you look on the Sgt. Pepper's album, there are pictures there that were like trophies of Paul playing soccer when he was a kid next to a grave. Yeah, it was really, really crazy. But Paul was not dead. But that rumor was very heavy. A lot of people in public believed it for more than 3 years. Other great songs on the album that were deeper cuts, and I do love the deeper cuts. That would be Something, Mama Miss America, Junk, Every Night, and Teddy Boy. And by the way, Mama Miss America and Junk and Teddy Boy, I've heard in movies. I've heard, those songs played in just random spots. I think Jerry Maguire has Junk in that movie and Mama Miss America. So if you've seen that movie, you're like, I don't know what's that song? It's Paul McCartney. It's kind of crazy, but true. All right. And then there have been a few re-releases of the album on Capitol Records. I have 2 copies of the album. I don't know how I got 2 copies, by the way, but I have 2 copies of the album. One is the original Apple version, and one is the remake on Capitol. There's no real sound difference. And then later on, when CDs came out, they started doing the things. Oh, we found this song deep in the vaults and we added it to the album. So you'd buy another copy of it, right? But again, if you've never listened, if you're a Paul McCartney fan or a Beatles fan and you've never listened to McCartney, again, it's going to be raw, but that's what I like about it. So check it out. Whether you're going to do it digitally or you're going to go to your local record store, which I recommend, and go buy a copy, and they're not that expensive. You can get a used copy for $5 to $10. If you want to go full on original first pressing, you get a copy for $75 to $100. So again, a great album to add to your collection. If you're a Beatles fan, you've never heard it, it's Paul McCartney's Cherries album. All right, there you have it. I think that is going to do it for the show today. I'm going to go out and shake some trees and see what falls out of them. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see you as we're out and about today. Everything Frederick Live is the network. I highly recommend. Again, if this is the first time you've seen this show, check out all the other podcasts. There are so many different types of podcasts and different opportunities to learn more things about Frederick, whether it's the good old boys teaching you about the history of Frederick, whether it's about one of our shows that will teach you about mindfulness and learning to be at peace with yourself, whether it's Frederick Sports in the afternoon, everything from the Frederick Keys to the Little Leagues around the region, whether it's Good Morning Frederick, who kind of gives you the best calendar in the land, as Danny likes to say, and tells you a little bit about everything that's going on around the region. There's so many different podcasts, and they are spread out throughout the day, the month, the week, and the year, of course. So check those all out. Tell your friends and like and subscribe below. And if you would like to be part of my show or any of the shows, or maybe you'd like to start your own podcast, please just reach out to me. It's pretty easy. My email address is rockthewave13@gmail.com. Happy Thursday. We'll be back at 4 with Frederick Sports. Remember, you are what you watch and you listen to. My name is John Hunt, and this has been John's House.
Thanks for stopping by John's House. Make sure you share, like, and comment, because this conversation is better when Frederick is part of it. Tune in every weekday for more local stories, real issues, community voices, and the people helping shape Frederick. We'll see you next time.
This episode is a proud production of the Everything Frederick Live Podcast Network. Your home for Frederick's best podcasts, streaming daily on YouTube.